Ambassador Kython held the datapad in his six-fingered hands, his crystal skin glowing with satisfaction. The message from Earth was exactly what he had expected. 3 days ago, the Vorthak Empire had destroyed a human colony ship called the New Dawn. Over 2 million humans had died in space, their bodies lost forever in the cold darkness between stars. Now Earth's response sat before him, written in the boring language that diplomats always used. The Human Republic declares a period of quiet mourning. All talks with other worlds are stopped. All trade is stopped. Humanity grieves. Kython's face changed into what his people called a smile, though it looked more like ice cracking around. The big council room. Aliens from many different worlds looked at each other with knowing eyes. The humans had surprised everyone before with their wild ways and their skill in battle. Many species had learned to respect them, even fear them a little. But now, when they faced real danger, the humans had chosen to hide and cry. "Just what I thought would happen," said General Vextar. His voice was deep and rough, like rocks, grinding together. The Vorthak general was huge, with thick armor covering his body and 4 arms that ended in claws. Humans like to talk about being strong. They tell stories about their great wars and brave soldiers. But when someone really hurts them, they run away to feel sorry for themselves. The galaxy is better off without their crazy ideas. Other council members nodded their heads. The Zelani representative, a being that looked like a walking tree, made clicking sounds that meant agreement. The fish-like Aquarians moved their fins in patterns that showed they felt the same way. Even the proud Stellari, who usually disagreed with everyone, seemed pleased that the humans were out of the way. Kython stood up from his floating chair. His species was very old and very smart, and they had seen many wars come and go. "The B. Vote is clear," he announced. "We will respect the human mourning time. Not because we care about their sadness, but because a quiet Earth cannot cause trouble for the rest of us." The vote was unanimous. Every single alien representative agreed. Far away from the council chambers, in the dark space around human worlds, strange things began to happen. Automated beacons that had been silent for years suddenly came to life. They sent out the same message over and over, in every language known to the galaxy. Humanity mourns. Do not disturb. The message was simple, but there was something in the way it was sent that made other species feel uncomfortable. The beacons didn't just broadcast the words, they sang them in harmonies that seemed to come from the hearts of the humans themselves. Captain Björn of the trading ship Starwalker was one of the first to see the beacons working. He had been friends with many humans over the years, and their sudden silence worried him. When he tried to get close to Earth's solar system, the beacons warned him away. But it wasn't a threat. It was more like a sad song that made him want to leave the humans alone with their grief. "Strange," he told his crew. "I've seen species mourn before. They either get angry and want revenge, or they get scared and hide. But this feels different." His navigator, a young female from his own species, checked their instruments. "The readings are odd, Captain. There's a lot of energy coming from human space, but it's not from weapons or shields. It's something else." On worlds across the galaxy, other species watched and waited. The Vorthak celebrated their victory. General Vextar had proven that humans could be beaten, that their reputation for being dangerous was just talk. His empire grew stronger while Earth stayed quiet, but some aliens were not so sure. The old ones, the species that had lived through many wars, felt something strange in the silence. It reminded them of the quiet that comes before a storm, when the air itself seems to hold its breath. The ethereal minds, beings of pure thought who rarely spoke to anyone, sent a message to the Galactic Council. It was just one word: beware. Kython ignored the warning. The ethereals were always seeing danger where none existed. Humans were emotional creatures who let their feelings control them. Their silence proved they were weak, not strong. Days turned into weeks. The human beacons kept singing their sad song. Ships that tried to enter human space were turned away, not by force, but by a strange feeling that they shouldn't go there. It was like trying to enter a house where someone had just died, a possible but not right. The galaxy settled into a new routine. Without human ships carrying goods between worlds, trade routes changed. Without human diplomats asking difficult questions, council meetings became quieter and more predictable. Without human explorers finding new worlds and new problems, everything seemed more peaceful. General Vextar was promoted to Supreme Commander of Vorthak forces. At the ceremony, he spoke about the human defeat. "Let this be a lesson to all who would challenge the natural order," he declared. "Strength wins over sentiment. Logic defeats emotion. The humans have learned their place, but in the darkness of space, something was growing. Something that would make the galaxy understand that human tears were not a sign of weakness. They were the beginning of something the universe had never seen before." Captain Yun gripped the controls of his ship with shaking hands. He had been flying cargo between worlds for 30 years. In that time, he had seen terrible wars that burned entire planets. He had watched diseases kill billions of people. He had even seen stars explode and destroy everything around them. But nothing had prepared him for what he was looking at now. The asteroid belt around Earth's sun had changed completely. Where once there had been floating rocks and empty space, now there were huge buildings. These structures were bigger than anything Yun had ever seen. They stretched from one asteroid to another, creating bridges of metal and light across the darkness of space. The buildings glowed with a strange, beautiful light that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. Ships moved between them in perfect lines. But these were not the messy, loud human ships that Yun remembered. These new vessels were smooth and silver, moving through space like water flows down a river. "This cannot be real," whispered his navigator, a young woman named Lin. Her voice was full of fear and wonder. "Captain, those buildings, each one is as big as a battle station. How many are there?" Yun looked at his instruments, trying to count the structures. The numbers went up and up, dozens, then hundreds. Then his computer simply stopped counting. There were too many to measure. "Let's go closer," Yun said, but as soon as he tried to fly toward the human buildings, something stopped him. It wasn't violence or weapons. Instead, it felt like space itself was gently pushing his ship away, like a parent moving a child away from danger. "Captain," Lin said, her voice very quiet, "look at the sides of those buildings." Yun used his ship's cameras to zoom in on the nearest structure. What he saw made his heart skip. The sides of the building were covered in writing, names, thousands and thousands of names. Each letter was huge, big enough to read from space. "Those are the names of the people who died," Lin whispered. "Every single person who was on the New Dawn when it was destroyed." All across the galaxy, other ship captains were seeing the same impossible things. Wherever humans had lived, wherever their space began, massive structures were appearing. But these were not the rough, quick fortresses that most species built when they were afraid. These were perfect, beautiful monuments that seemed to be made of light itself. Back on the capital world of the Galactic Council, Ambassador Kython read report after report with growing confusion. Every spy, every scout, every trading ship that got close to human space came back with the same story. The humans had built something amazing and terrible in just 6 months. "Demand an explanation," Kython ordered his assistants. "Send a message to Earth. Tell them we want to know what they are doing." The response came back quickly in the same sad musical voice that had been broadcasting for months. "Humanity mourns. Do not disturb." But it was General Vextar who felt the most worried. In his war room on the Vorthak homeworld, he stared at holographic pictures of the human structures. His forearms moved nervously as he studied the images, and his claws clicked against the metal table. 6 months, he muttered to himself. "How could they build so much in 6 months? My empire has been building for centuries, and we have never made anything like this." His young assistant, Cole, tried to make the general feel better. "Maybe they are just scared, sir. Maybe they are hiding behind these buildings instead of fighting back like real warriors would." But Vexitar had been a soldier for over 200 years. He had fought in dozens of wars and conquered many worlds. In all that time, he had learned to feel when trouble was coming. Right now, every instinct he had was screaming danger. "No," he said slowly, his deep voice full of worry. "They are not hiding. Look at these structures. Look at how perfect they are. Look at how they are arranged." Cole looked more carefully at the holographic displays. The human buildings were not randomly placed. They formed patterns, like words written across space itself. And those patterns were growing, connecting to each other, creating something bigger. What are they preparing for? Cole asked. Vextar's mandibles clicked together, making a sound like breaking glass. In all his campaigns, in all his victories, he had learned to read the signs that came before battle, and these signs were bigger than anything he had ever seen. Across the galaxy, other military leaders were asking the same questions. The Stellari War Council met in emergency session. The Aquarian Defense Fleet doubled their patrols. Even the peaceful Zelani began to move their most important people to safer worlds, but the humans remained silent. Their beautiful, impossible structures continued to grow. Their silver ships continued to move in perfect formation, and their message remained the same. Humanity mourns. Do not disturb. Deep in space, automated probes tried to get close enough to scan the human structures. Most were turned away by the same gentle force that stopped Captain Yun, but a few got close enough to take measurements before being pushed back. What they found was impossible. The human structures were not just big, they were precisely engineered down to the smallest detail. Every piece fit perfectly with every other piece. It was as if the entire construction had been planned by a single mind that could see across light years of space. The storm was gathering, and soon the galaxy would learn what human mourning really meant. Admiral Zhou stood at the front of her ship's bridge, looking out through the huge windows at what humanity had built. Her hands were folded behind her back and she stood very still. Around her the crew worked without making any sound. They were not quiet because they were scared. They were quiet because what they were about to do was holy. 1 year had passed since the Vorthak Empire destroyed the New Dawn and killed over 2 million humans. 1 year of silence, 1 year of building, 1 year of preparing for this moment. Tell me how we are doing, Admiral Zhou said in a soft voice. Commander Park looked at his screens and answered. His voice was calm, but his hands shook a little as he spoke. All fleets are ready, Admiral. 17 Vorthak worlds, and we have surrounded every single one. Memorial Fleet Alpha is ready. Memorial Fleet Beta is ready. All the way through Memorial Fleet Omega 7, we are ready to show them what we have built. Admiral Zhou nodded and looked out the window again. What she saw was impossible to believe, even though she had helped plan it. Millions and millions of human ships stretched across space as far as her eyes could see. They were arranged in perfect patterns like flowers in a garden or words written by a giant hand. Each ship was different, but each one had something in common. Written on the side of every vessel was the name of someone who had died on the New Dawn. There were big ships with names like Captain Kim Dae-ho and small ships with names like Baby Girl Choi, age 3 months. Every single person who had died was remembered with their own ship. The fleets were arranged so that when you looked at them from far away, they spelled out words. Words of love, words of memory, words of promise. The letters were so big that people on planets could read them by looking up at the sky. They wanted to see how humans cry, Admiral Zhou said. Her voice was carried to every single ship in the huge fleet through special communication devices. Today, they will learn that when humans are sad, we do not become smaller. We become bigger than the stars themselves. On 17 different Vorthak worlds, people looked up at their skies and saw something that had never happened before in the history of the galaxy. Where once there had been stars and empty space, now there were human ships. So many ships that they covered up entire groups of stars. The night sky had become a ceiling of metal and light. The Vorthak people had been celebrating for a year. They thought they had won a great victory by destroying the human colony ship. They thought the humans had given up and were hiding in fear. Now they realized how wrong they had been. On the main Vorthak world, General Vextar stood on the command deck of his biggest warship. He was looking at screens that showed him what was happening around his planet. His forearms hung at his sides, and his mouth was open in shock. His tactical computers were trying to count the human ships, but they kept giving up. The numbers were too big. Every time the computers thought they had counted them all, they found more ships hiding behind the first ones. How many are there? Asked his aide Cole, his voice full of fear. I do not know, General Vextar whispered. My computers cannot count them all. For the first time in his long life as a warrior, General Vextar felt truly afraid. He had destroyed the human colony ship because he thought it would make the humans weak. Instead, it had made them into something he could not understand. The human ships did not shoot weapons, they did not threaten or attack. They just existed, hanging in space like a living monument to the dead. But their presence was more frightening than any army Vextar had ever faced. Then, all at once, every human ship began to broadcast the same message. The voice came from everywhere at once, as if the sky itself was speaking. We are the memory of those who died. We are the love that lives on after death. We are what is left when everything else is taken away. Today the sky becomes human. Today sadness becomes something beautiful and terrible. On every Vorthak world, people ran inside their houses and hid. Children cried and held on to their parents. Even the bravest warriors felt their courage leave them. But the human ships did. Nothing violent. They just stayed there, writing words of love and memory across the darkness of space. They had turned the entire sky into a funeral poem for their dead. Commander Park looked at Admiral Zhou with wonder in his eyes. Admiral, the enemy fleets are not moving. They are not attacking, they are just waiting. Admiral Zhou smiled, but it was a sad smile. They are beginning to understand what we have done. We have not built weapons. We have built a memorial that covers light years of space. We have taken our grief and made it into something that will last forever. Looking out at the memorial fleet, she whispered the names of some of the dead. For little Minho, who wanted to be a pilot. For grandmother Hyun, who told the best stories. For all of them who will never be forgotten. The sky had turned human, and the galaxy would never be the same. What happened next was not like any battle the galaxy had ever seen. It was not war. It was something beautiful and terrible at the same time, like watching an artist paint with the stars themselves. The millions of human ships began to move as if they were all parts of one giant mind. When one ship turned left, 1,000 others turned right at exactly the same moment. When one ship moved forward, others moved back to make perfect patterns. It was like watching a dance performed by an entire sky full of dancers who never missed. A step Commander Lee stood on the bridge of her ship, the Remembrance Dawn. She was in charge of taking apart an entire Vorthak battle fleet, but she did it like a doctor performing surgery. Her voice was calm and quiet as she gave orders to hundreds of ships at once. Move Formation Alpha 7 to the left, she said. Formation Beta 2. Go around the enemy's right side. Remember, we are not here to kill. We are here to show them what love can build. The Vorthak had weapons that could break moons into pieces. They had shields that had never been broken in 1,000 years of war. But none of it mattered. The human ships moved through space in ways that seemed impossible, bending around the Vorthak weapons like water flowing around rocks. Lieutenant Han, who worked at the weapons station, looked at his screens with amazement. Commander, we have made a hole in the enemy flagship's wall, but no one is hurt. Our weapons are set to break things, not kill people. Commander Lee nodded. Good, this is not about revenge. This is about showing them what happens when humans love someone so much that losing them changes everything. The human ships moved like magic. They appeared in one place, then seemed to be in 3 places at once. They dodged enemy fire so perfectly that it looked like they knew where the shots would go before they were fired. The Vorthak weapons could not hit them, and the Vorthak shields could not stop them. On the main Vorthak world, General Vextar watched everything he had built in his long life fall apart. He had spent hundreds of years creating the strongest military in the galaxy. His empire had conquered dozens of worlds. His weapons were feared across 3 sectors of space. Now in just a few hours it was all gone. Sir, his aide Cole said, his voice shaking with fear, our entire fleet is finished. The humans did not blow it up. They just took it apart, piece by piece, ship by ship, like taking apart a puzzle very carefully. General Vextar looked out the windows of his command center and saw something that made his warrior's heart break. The human ships were arranging themselves into new patterns, and those patterns made words. Giant words written across the sky, in ships and light. For Captain Kim, who loved to explore new worlds, one formation spelled out. For Engineer Cho, who dreamed of building better engines, said another. For little Jay, age 7, who wanted to touch the stars, read a third. Each message was about someone who had died on the new dawn. Each arrangement of ships was like a poem written in starlight, telling the story of a life that had been lost. The human ships kept moving, kept changing, kept making new words and new patterns. They were turning the entire battle into a memorial service for their dead. Every move they made, every formation they created, was another way to honor the people who had been killed. In 72 hours, something impossible happened. The Vorthak Empire, which had been the terror of 3 sectors, which had conquered world after world, which had the strongest military anyone had ever seen, simply stopped existing. Not because it was destroyed, but because it was taken apart so completely and so carefully that nothing was left. The humans had not killed a single Vorthak soldier. They had just made all the Vorthak weapons useless, all the Vorthak ships unable to fly, all the Vorthak defenses unable to defend. It was like watching someone take apart a giant machine by removing one screw at a time until nothing was left but pieces. Not one human had died in the process. Not one human ship had been destroyed. They had moved through the battle like ghosts, like beings made of light and memory instead of metal and flesh. All across the galaxy, other species watched what was happening with fear and wonder. They had thought the humans were weak because they had mourned quietly for a year. Now they realized that the humans had not been mourning quietly at all. They had been building something that was bigger than war, stronger than weapons, and more beautiful than anything the galaxy had ever seen. They had taken their sadness and their love for the dead and turned it into power that could reshape the stars themselves. The Galactic Council met in emergency session, but no one knew what to say. The humans had not broken any laws. They had not attacked anyone who had not attacked them first. They had just shown that when humans love someone, that love can become something that changes the universe. The sky was still full of human ships, still spelling out the names of the dead, still dancing in patterns that told stories of love and loss and memory. The galaxy had learned something new about humans. When they mourned, they did not become weak. They became something beyond imagination. Admiral Zhou walked slowly to the front of the big meeting room. Her uniform had tiny writing all over it, the names of everyone who died on the New Dawn ship. The writing was so small it looked like pretty patterns, but each name meant everything to her. The room was huge and filled with alien leaders from across the galaxy. Nobody was talking. They all stared at her with their strange eyes. Some had 3 eyes, others had eyes that glowed, and some had no eyes at all. But they were all watching her. "You wanted to know about human sadness," she said. Her voice was strong and clear. "You thought when we cry it means we give up. You were very wrong." Behind her, a big screen showed something amazing. Where Earth's sky used to have normal stars, now there was something new. Millions and millions of human ships were floating in space, all lined up in perfect rows. They made a new group of stars that people on Earth could see every night. "When humans love someone," Zhou said, "we love them with everything we have. When we lose someone we love, we don't just forget them. And when we feel sad," she pointed at the screen showing all the ships in space, "we change the whole universe to remember them." In a special chair sat General Vextar. He was the alien who had started the war by attacking human ships. His army was gone now and he was a prisoner, but the humans let him come to this meeting to see what his attack had caused. "Every single ship you see up there," Zhou told everyone, "was built because we loved the people who died. Every weapon we made was made while we were crying for our friends. Every plan we made came from one simple question: how do we make sure their deaths meant something that will last forever?" The alien leaders shifted in their seats. Some of them had tentacles instead of arms. Others looked like big insects. A few looked almost human, but with blue skin or extra fingers. They all seemed uncomfortable. "You thought human sadness made us weak," Zhou said, looking right at them. "You thought our tears meant we would be easy to beat. You were wrong about everything." Suddenly, the ships in the memorial constellation started moving. They slowly changed their positions to make letters and words. The words were written in thousands of different languages from all over the galaxy. The message was about peace and forgiveness. The alien leaders gasped and made strange sounds of surprise. Some clicked their beaks, others buzzed their antennae. They had never seen anything like this before. "Starting today, Admiral Zhou said in a loud, clear voice. "Everyone in the galaxy should know this truth. When humans are sad, even the stars cry with us. And when the stars cry, they become more beautiful than they ever were before. The memorial constellation would stay in space for 10,000 years. Every night, people on Earth and on human colonies would look up and see it. They would remember that love doesn't end when someone dies. Love changes the whole universe into something beautiful to honor the people who are gone." Far away in the deepest parts of space, robot machines were still sending out messages to any ships that came near human territory. But the message had changed. Before, it used to warn ships to stay away. Now it said something different. "Humanity remembers. Come and see something wonderful." General Vextar sat quietly in his chair. He thought about how he had attacked the human ships because he believed humans were weak. He thought their emotions made them easy targets. Now he understood that human emotions didn't make them weak. Emotions made them powerful in ways he never imagined. The other alien leaders were whispering to each other in their strange languages. They were starting to understand that humans were very different from what they expected. Human sadness wasn't like a broken wing that made them unable to fly. Human sadness was like fuel that made them fly higher and farther than anyone thought possible. One small alien with purple skin and 4 arms raised her hand. "Admiral Zhou," she said in a tiny voice, "we are sorry. We did not understand." Zhou nodded. "Now you do. And now you know that humans can forgive, even when we are hurting. Our memorial ships aren't just about remembering the dead. They're about choosing to build something beautiful instead of just destroying everything that hurt us." The meeting ended, but the alien leaders stayed in their seats for a long time. They kept looking at the screen showing the memorial constellation. Each ship was like a star made of love and sadness and hope all mixed together. From that day on, the galaxy was different. Other species started to understand that humans were not just another warrior race. Humans were something new, a people who could turn their deepest pain into the most beautiful art the universe had ever seen. The constellation shined every night, reminding everyone that some things are stronger than death, and love is the strongest thing of all.